Hi everyone, it's William with the latest installment of the Grand Duke Dmitri 1915 diary series on YouTube. And we tried something a little new yesterday, or rather I did, and I didn't feel like it worked out very well. I got so tangled up that I actually made a considerable error and talked about Dmitri taking his grandmother to the Elagin Palace to see the Dowager Empress, when in fact that hadn't happened yet. It happens in one of the diary entries today. But yeah, so I'm going to try something a little different. Instead of going through all 5 diary entries and then commenting, I'm going to comment after each diary entry. It's not ideal. I completely admit that. It sort of interrupts the flow, but yeah, I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to try it. And if you're getting frustrated with things, then, don't stop watching. Drop me a line, because I always will consider what input people have. I love to get input. Okay, so the recap from yesterday. Well, we had Felix Yusupov turn up. We found out that Dmitri had an injured leg, and it was kind of keeping him at home a little bit. And yeah, we have this very mysterious person called Mikhailovich, who was completely absent from previous diary entries and previous years in which Dmitri was writing. So, yeah, and will be absent in the future. And my guess is that he was a new adjutant for Dmitri. Shagubatov is still around, but only slightly. Shagubatov has kind of more or less disappeared, and he told Dmitri before that he was anxious to get back to his regiment, the Guards Ulan's regiment. So maybe Mikhailovich is a permanent or temporary replacement. That's the only thing I can think, because Mikhailovich is either coming in the morning, which, is when an adjutant would come to talk about what needs to be done that day, or if he doesn't make it in the morning, he's coming in the evening, maybe to talk about the next day. So that's just sort of an educated guess on my part. It's frustrating. All right, so today we are going to do the 23rd through the 29th of June, but with one thing that I need to mention is that we'll be jumping from the 25th of June, which was a Thursday, to the 28th of June, a Sunday. For whatever reason, that weekend, the Friday and Saturday, Dmitri did not even jot down notes in his diaries. He must have been busy, too bad he didn't tell us what he was doing that weekend. Okay, so here we go. 23rd June /6th July, Mikhailovich. So, these are not complete sentences by and large. If that sounds funny, just to say Mikhailovich and then go on to the next thing. All right, lunched à deux with Nikitin. GM is sick. I put a boot on for the first time and went to see GM. Babushka at 3 o'clock. I took her to the Elagin Palace, then went home. Tea with Nastya. She stayed for dinner. Then I went to the club. Evening with Wrangel. Okay, so a few people to talk about here. I'm confused about Nikitin. The female form of the name would be Nikitina, and yet he does identify, in some of these diary entries, he identifies Nastya, this new woman in his life, as Nikitin, Nastya Nikitin. So who did he have lunch with? Adu. Was it, was it a male Nikitin, possibly her husband, or was it her herself? I'm not sure. If it was her, then why did he change the name and say he had lunch with Nikitin and then tea with Nastya? I don't know. Could go either way. So he put on a boot for the first time, put on boots. He says, I put on a boot for the first time. So obviously the leg injury had caused swelling, and it was a lower leg injury, probably ankle or something like that. Yeah, could be foot, actually, because the word naga in Russian, it can be, either any part of the leg, including the foot. Anyway, that's nice of him to go and see GM, who's sick. GM, of course, lived in the same palace as Dmitri, but he had his own residence within the palace. And it's interesting that Dmitri put on a boot, or put on his boots to go and see him. I mean, it's Dmitri's palace, after all. Why can't he walk through in, wearing slippers? Sure, everybody would understand, but yeah, anyway, he put his boots on to go and visit GM. Now, today is the day that he took babushka. He says drove. He uses the verb to drive. But it could be that he was not the driver. I would imagine she had a car at her disposal, even if not her own car. But, this was nice. She spent some time with her grandson. We talked a little bit about Dmitri and Maria's relationship with their Danish/Greek grandparents. The grandfather was dead by then. And so he takes her to the palace. We don't know if he stays, and then goes home. He has tea with Nastya. So Nastya is the diminutive form in Russian of Anastasia. I always want to pronounce it Anastasia, because I know Anastasia, that's the name in Greek. And she stays for dinner. She has tea with him, then she stays for dinner. So who is she? Wouldn't I just love to know? No idea. When I tried looking up Anastasia Nikitina with no patronymic, I got, there's a model, a Russian supermodel who has that name now. Okay. Then he goes to the club, because what's a day without going to the club? You have to go to the club. That's his real home when he's in Petrograd. And then he spends the evening with Wrangel, which is surprising. This isn't the famous General Pyotr Wrangel. This is Nikolai Wrangel, who was Grand Duke Mikhail's adjutant. So yeah, interesting. That diary entry is a little longer than some of the others, but we're onward to the 24th of June / 7th July. Mielewski comes in the morning. Lunch with Nikitin and GM. Wait. Lunch with, not with them. That was from the day before. Lunch with Garut, which is an abbreviation, Garut, period. I don't know who that is. Krupensky, Vilbushevich, Johnson, and Miss June. I went riding with him. He probably is referring to Johnson. Spent the afternoon at the club. Okay, a couple things surprised me about this one. One being that Dmitri doesn't have lunches like this. His father has lunches like this. There's always other people coming to lunch. But Dmitri didn't have even a mini court. Some of the Grand Dukes, most of them, I think, had their kind of own little courts and kind of an open house for friends to come for lunch, and also people being invited. Dmitri didn't do that. But in this instance, he is, which is interesting. And who are the people that he invites? Well, among the ones that I have any information about, Krupensky, I'm guessing, was probably Pavel Nikolaevich Krupensky. It could have been just a Krupensky who was, an officer in one of the Guards regiments. But if it was a well-known Krupensky, then it was Pavel Nikolaevich, who was in his 50s. And, I can imagine Dmitri inviting him because he was a politician. he was in the Duma, and Dmitri loved politics. And he was quite a prominent politician from Bessarabia, which is now Moldova. I don't think the name Bessarabia is used anymore. And so, you know, it would make sense to me that Dmitri invited him. Then this, you know, this isn't a military. This isn't him inviting his officer friends. So I think that gives more credibility to the idea that it was the politician Krupinski. Meanwhile, another guest, Vilbushevich, was a kind of an artist in a strange way, although I'm not disparaging it. He was one of the founders of something, I can't remember the name of it. What was the name of it? There's a term for it that I'd never heard before, but he was one of the pioneers of this art, I guess you could say it, of speaking while, like poetry, like reciting poetry or something, while music is played. Maybe strumming a guitar and, you know, doing a Shakespeare sonnet at the same time. I don't know, but that's an interesting person for Dmitri to write or to invite, as is Krupinski. Then Johnson, you know, the previous day Dmitri had this meeting with Wrangel, with Michael's adjutant, now Johnson, who was Michael's personal secretary, although he tends to be where Brasova is, not where Michael is. But he and Dmitri apparently really hit it off, because they spend time that seems to be completely unrelated to Brasova or Michael. They just spend time together. They were buddies. Miss June, now this one absolutely astonishes me. I thought Miss June was gone forever. I mean, Miss June is short. It wasn't June, it was short for her surname. What was her name? Junkovskaya, I believe. I might have mangled that. And, you know, we got to know her well back in 1906, 1907 in the diaries, because she was Maria's governess, and neither of the children liked her. She called them by their first names. You know, she would scold them if they weren't behaving, including Dmitri, not just Maria. And, you know, she seems to have been a generally uptight person. She was always upset if she wasn't invited to family occasions, which was silly of her. GM didn't bristle at that, but Miss June did. And she once did something that was a very good and worthy act when they were in the Crimea, and they had all taken a carriage ride to see a waterfall or something, and they were on their way back, and she saw a woman just lying prostrated on the side of the road, and she was the one who said, okay, we're going to stop. We're not going to assume that help is already on its way or that somebody else is going to stop. We are going to stop. And she got out and came to the aid of the woman, who it turned out had cholera, and they all stayed there until help did arrive. It was indeed, I believe, already on the way. So I think, you know, that speaks very, very highly of her. And, you know, the kids must have made their peace with her, because Dmitri is inviting her to lunch at his place. So nice. I think that's nice. Then he goes riding with Johnson, and, you know, of course, back to the club, the yacht club. And it's interesting because in another diary entry in the next few days of the diary, he will be riding again. So he, despite the leg injury, he's back in the saddle, and yeah, doing that regularly. He liked horses. He was a cavalryman. Officer. He was a horse trainer, so that's not surprising. And it's June, so the weather's probably nice. And I was over ambitious, thinking that I was going to be able to get through 5 diary entries. Let's see. Let's do one more because it's so quick. 25th June, 8th July, Mielovsky, lunch with Nastya Nikitin, GM, new rooms, ride with Nastya, afternoon at the club, Sergei Mikhailovich. So I think I think what that means is that GM had lunch with Dmitri and Nastya, and then afterwards he goes riding with Nastya. This isn't such a short one because I wanted to talk about his new rooms. He was so excited about his new rooms. Dmitri just loved furniture. He loved, reminds me of my mom. Her favorite thing was to shop for furniture and to, rearrange rooms and that sort of thing. So, when he was banished from Russia and when he was writing letters to Felix Yusupov from Tehran, he really missed two things. One was that they didn't have these evenings where they got together anymore and sort of played the guitar and riffed and sang. The other thing was his rooms. They were new. So he had an apartment in the palace. I don't think he literally means that he switched rooms. I think he means that he newly furnished them, which is what he talks about later with Felix. He had a tiger skin rug. He had some new gray upholstery, and he just loved those rooms. So, yeah, anyway, Sergei Mikhailovich drops by. Aha, that's interesting. Sergei Mikhailovich, Grand Duke Sergei Mikhailovich, he was in his 40s, so quite a bit older than Dmitri. He was a sometime lover of Kshesinska, although Grand Duke Andrei was the one who won out in that. So, I have no reason to think that he and Dmitri were not friendly with each other, but I don't think they were. I never thought of them as being close, but it's interesting that Sergei Mikhailovich turned up. And in this part of the diaries, we are going to see more family members. Okay, so we got 3 in. What do we have next time? Dmitri has a new passion, my friends, and it's not billiards anymore, it's poker. And what else? Is Nastya still around? And then also we will have Nicholas and Alexandra. We will have the Montenegrin sisters. And we will have a return to headquarters. That is, if we make it to those diary entries. Yeah. Let me know what you think about this. For me, it was easier than the previous, going through all the diary entries and then reading the comments. Both because I can then gauge how much time is left and if I want to go forward, and also because I'm not just getting completely tangled up in these different people and putting them in on the wrong days and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I hope to see you next time. Thank you for your patience with all of this, and take care. Bye.